big shout out from Australia. Hi, you guys. I had to jump back and make a video because of developments in the Middle East. And so I'll be looking at that. And as you can see from my hair, I went to see my hairdresser this morning, Betty from Baghdad. And I was very interested in what she thought. And she said she felt very sorry for the Iranian people under sanctions. But inevitably, there will be retaliation, of course. You know, it's such a provocative act. And we'll get to that in a moment. First, an update on the fires. None of that is good. We had 4,000 people on a beach. Now we've got 8,000 people on 3 beaches. On top of that, evacuation centres are now being evacuated. Places are not safe. These evacuation centres are often just community halls and stuff, and Yvonne and Gladys had come down with the sausages and the sandwiches. You know, they're not equipped as professional centres to cope with anything. So the other problem with these fires, unlike all other bushfires, normally a bushfire will roar through, and then after it's passed, you can go back and take the animals back and start rebuilding. But these fires are doubling back on themselves. So the emergency services are stretched to the absolute limit. And in New South Wales, which is one of the most affected states, the head of the emergency department went on holidays, just like our Prime Minister. He had to be hauled back reluctantly from London. They don't get it. These guys don't get it. And our Pentecostal Prime Minister, who had to have an empathy coach before the last election at the cost of $90,000, as someone said, they should get their money back, really, because he's so tone deaf. You remember Trump with the paper towels in Puerto Rico? Our Prime Minister had a little single grocery bag of shopping that he went in. Here are thousands of people displaced. And he takes a little bag of groceries that some aide would have bought. He wouldn't know what a supermarket was. I think, you know, it's craziness, absolute craziness. So none of that's marvellous, you have to say. Also, with what is happening generally with the fires, people have moved to another stage now. That first stage of everyone pulling together and, you know, not blaming anyone for anything. And now people are really angry, and they're describing themselves for the first time as Australia's climate refugees. So just where that Scott Morrison. True. And here he is, an ardent Christian, you know, passing all this legislation that, you know, this victimising of these Christian bodies that isn't happening, you know, like crazy stuff. But where are the churches? This is the biggest crisis facing Australia since the Second World War, and all the churches should be open to people, because people are going to need somewhere to live for months. You know, they should be putting up alternative schools. Schools are burnt down. Kids are supposed to go back after the summer holidays in 3 weeks. Where to? Why aren't the churches now getting a roster of teachers and putting up demountables and offering their buildings for temporary schools? Anyway, let's focus now. So my 2 questions are, was there anyone else involved, another country working with Trump? And if so, which country or countries? And the second mini read will be what form the retaliation is likely to take. And I have some other epic news, viewers. I'm going to be doing a joint reading with Linda G. How exciting is that? We're trying to get it together in the next few weeks, but we're both sort of manically busy and trying to find out, but we think we've got a time to do it. So I am so excited. Okay. All right. Focus, Lena. Okay, were other countries involved? Kushner, I'm hearing Kushner. Well, he's in bed with both Saudi and Israel. Let's see. Where are other countries involved? Oh, this is only the beginning, unfortunately. Okay, so we've got in the centre the Queen of Tides or the Queen of Cups. I think this is not referring to an individual woman. I think this is referring more to, ironically, Trump himself, in the sense that he has been influenced. So, some woman has spoken to him. Could it be Melania? I'm not sure. I think it's a rabbit hole to go down looking for a woman with this, but this was an emotional decision. First digression, viewers. Why is it that every failing leader always goes to the default position of let's start a war to take, the attention off my failing everything? So I think this is an emotional Trump. Now, as we know, Trump is not a sentient, emotional person. He's not a warm and fuzzy person. He doesn't even have identifiable, normal emotions. And yet he's a totally emotional creature. In the way that long-term drunks are really emotional, he is like that. He runs on adrenaline and emotion. And I think this is his energy in here as a sort of out of control Queen of Cups. Past actions in relation to this issue. Well, of course, there's a whole history with the Middle East that we're reducing to one card here. And it's the Five of Swords, the endless, ruthless conflict. It's the one in the Rider-Waite of the ruthless guy with the two swords and other people walking away from him. This is, things being burnt to the ground. This is, sadly, the history of the Middle East. The cradle of civilization has now become this war field. So, current thinking on this. There is another country involved. Oh, okay, I'm hearing Israel. I have to say, this is a pact between the two. Now, Israel, that's interesting. You would have to think the Mossad, which is, regardless of your personal opinion on the Israeli state, I'm not going there, but anyone would acknowledge that the Mossad is the greatest intelligence service in the known world. Just like the All Blacks are the best rugby union players, the Mossad, and they obviously could have taken this guy out, but they didn't. Trump did. So I think this was not so much brokered by Kushner, but Kushner was the conduit back to Trump to name this guy, because neither Kushner nor Trump would know who Soleimani was. So there's this sort of connection here. The atmosphere around this issue is not good. It's the Three of Wands or the Three of Swords. So this is, again, this comes back to Trump's emotional state. He's feeling stabbed in the heart by all this. So he's going to pull out literally the big guns now. And he's prepared to send 3,000 of the armed services into the battle zone. The short-term outcome is working on the details. This, I think, is Iran working on its response. Here, I drew an extra couple of cards, and I got, this is what's usually the Six of Cups, the six times, childhood and so forth. If you're reading for a normal person, this is about nostalgia and childhood, but we're not. We're talking about the history of the pact, I'm going to say, in this case, with Israel. And this is the Queen of Wands. So in other words, this will be, there's more fire to come. There's more fire to come. That's all I'll say about that. So that leads us into the second question of what form the retaliation's likely to take. So I'm just going to draw a few cards on this and then go for some clarifiers. Okay. So let's have a look. Oops, that fell out, the Hierophant. Oh, well, that's the other aspect to the story, isn't it, viewers? While I'm shuffling, I'll just talk about that. The Hierophant, law and order government. He did this without consulting Congress. Am I wrong in thinking no American president should go and do a warlike act without consulting Congress? We know he talked to Lindsay, Queen of Swords, Graham. That's not good enough. Not good enough. So I think there's going to be legal repercussions for Trump yet again, yet more, on how he did this in between golf games. How dare he treat service personnel like this? Okay, so what form is it likely to take? Tell me about it. The foolish act, the money, the inept joker. All right. So on top, like I said, the legal, the legal situation. Then there is the Fool card. Okay, now it could be foolishness by Iran or foolishness by Trump or both. Or both. Big money. Big money is behind this one way or another, which I would suggest is oil money, followed by surprise news. Page of Cups. So let's try and go further with this. The retaliation. Oh, I'm hearing about the oil. About the oil. Okay. About the oil. What's that about? Oh, these are not fun. So you have the enemy here. This is Iran contemplating its options. This would say to me, we could see the burning of oil fields. Alternatively, it could be like either blowing up or closing the Straits of Hormuz. That's a possibility. But I think they'll retaliate via oil. The peacock in the middle. Again, it's hard to tell with these guys. Is this Trump the peacock or the Iranian leader the peacock, or in fact both? And it's the ego of two peacocks. No one's going to win because no one ever does. The only lasting solutions are not military. It is so self-evident, is it not, intrepid ones? You know, and Obama had managed to curb Iran's nuclear program, which of course was one of the Yeti's first acts was to undermine that. If he thinks he can take on the Middle East, really, really okay. So let's just have a little think now. I'm going to ask what is going to be the longer term impact for Trump of this manoeuvre. What's the longer term impact of this Trump? Look, it's always the case, isn't it? It's boys in the bathtub moving their battleships around. You know, it's that the image I keep getting. How's this going to play out for Trump longer term? Trump in the longer term. Trump in the longer term. Oh, Lordy. Oh, these cards. Goodness me. So, the Eight of Tides, the walking away, a very bleak and isolated figure. This is him playing with fire yet again. Look at this. Trump's losses are going to be considerable. This is actually going to have much more of a negative impact than is first obvious. He might be hero of the day to some now, saying we stopped a war by doing this. No, this is destitution. So look at this combo, right? Destitution in the hot air balloon. Could there be a better metaphor for the Yeti than the hot air balloon? So he's going to try and float off out and away from it. He's got to be careful though, because Putin is an Iranian ally. And as I've been saying often, Putin is playing a double game. He's feeding the Yeti biscuits on the one hand, and he's acting against the US interests big time on the other hand. So that's as I see it for now. I think there will be retaliation involving oil. So we will see. That doesn't rule out other forms of retaliation, of course, but I think the one that's going to really bite is about oil. So we will see. Now, intrepid ones. Oh, sorry, I've just got an incoming call. I'll say goodbye for now. Ciao for now.